Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are attending. I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar here with TeamViewer, Threat Detection and Response for Companies of All Sizes. So we'll be talking about security detection and response for any kind of company out there and the options that are available. I'll be your speaker today. I'm Terry Hartup, one of the Enterprise Solutions Engineers here at TeamViewer, and I'll be leading us through today's webinar. So, cybersecurity is always a hot topic here amongst our customers. And according to the Hiscox Cyber Readiness Report of 2021, 40% of U.S. companies have stated that they have suffered a malware attack. 1 out of 6 companies state that they were hit with ransomware, and 58% of those that were hit actually paid the ransom. In 2020, ransom payments averaged $111,605. And the U.S. actually ranks number 1 in terms of ransomware attacks. But ransomware isn't the only issue. 95% of cybersecurity breaches were actually caused by human error. And the average cost of a data breach somewhere around $3.8 million. Also, about 88% of organizations have experienced phishing attempts in the past. According to an Accenture study, 68% of business leaders feel that their cybersecurity risks are increasing. So absolutely, cybersecurity should really be at the front of mind for all companies out there. Then also, due to COVID-19, a lot of organizations have allowed their staff to work from home. And unfortunately, this has caused an increase in cybersecurity attacks by increasing what we call the attack surface. For example, workers might be connected to less secure networks than their office network, or they might not always be connected to the company VPN. Additionally, potentially unsecure or poorly set up collaboration solutions to enable work from home can pose an additional risk. Phishing emails are now more successful than ever because a simple chat with a coworker about that one weird email that came in aren't as possible or as easy anymore. And speaking of phishing, the COVID-19 pandemic has created a lot of fear and uncertainty with people looking for new information. Due to that, they may quickly become victim to social engineering and might click a link that they shouldn't have clicked. After all, 47% of employees cite distraction as the reason for ultimately falling for a phishing scam while working from home. So, how do we combat these cyber attacks? How do we get ahead of things? So, there's a number of boxes that companies can check to try to handle these. First, start with the basics. Identify every device in your network. Run regular backups. Make sure you learn and debrief after every incident or breach. Also, set and follow a framework, making sure that all your virtual doors and windows are shut. Also, be sure to check the 5 imperatives set by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. You can also invest in training to drive awareness towards phishing emails, social engineering tactics, and other attempts. Educated staff will be much more or less likely to fall victim to these kinds of attacks. You can get your management involved, as cybersecurity should also be a priority for executive management, not just IT management, as there can be financial repercussions and also reputational repercussions. And of course, you want to build resilience. Not only should your organization prepare and test for a breach, it should also be sure to have a reliable endpoint protection solution that protects against zero-day exploits, malware, and protecting your staff while browsing the internet by blocking malicious websites. And that, my friends, is where TeamViewer comes in. TeamViewer has now partnered with Malwarebytes, a trusted name in the anti-malware industry, to provide 2 new products, Malwarebytes Endpoint Protection and Malwarebytes Endpoint Detection and Response. Both products provide advanced cyber defense with forward-thinking malware protection against a wide array of vulnerabilities, powered by Malwarebytes and completely integrated into the TeamViewer product. So let's take a look first at endpoint protection. So endpoint protection offers complete protection from all kinds of malware, zero-day exploits, suspicious activity, and more. Now, we go beyond just a simple signature-based approach. We can also do real-time protection. We can watch for suspicious behavior on devices, such as unwanted modifications, unwanted programs. We can also protect against known malicious websites by blocking access to those if a user happens to try to go to those. So we'll have all of that available with the endpoint protection product. And it's easy to use and deploy. It's simply added on to your existing TeamViewer software that you may already have in your environment. Simply select and activate the product on your devices, and they'll be installed very easily. It's also all completely cloud-based, and it's maintained from your own TeamViewer management console that you know and love. So no extra consoles required. And we also offer endpoint access. Since you are using TeamViewer, you'll be able to connect to those devices as part of your scanning and remediation capabilities. Now, we also offer our second product, Malwarebytes Endpoint Detection and Response. And this actually enhances your response capabilities to any kind of attack. Now, of course, it comes with everything that endpoint protection has to offer, but it also offers advanced remediation features, the ability to isolate endpoints, and even roll back from a ransomware attack. Now, endpoint protection and endpoint detection and response are a part of the TeamViewer Remote Management, our remote management platform. So as you can see, we've been constantly expanding our use cases beyond our original remote support and remote access business. And these pieces are part of our TeamViewer Remote Management suite. So what exactly is TeamViewer Remote Management, and what is it good for? Well, it's a remote monitoring and management collection of software. It provides our customers with valuable insight into their IT infrastructure in various ways. And it helps our customers to run and maintain their IT infrastructure remotely. It also enables our customers to be proactive instead of being reactive, trying to take care of issues before they become a huge problem while they're still a small problem. It also boosts operational efficiency and keeps costs low. If you can handle problems while they're small, then you can spend more time on improvements and all of the regular day-to-day work you need to do. And finally, for our MSP customers, it offers business opportunities to provide additional services to your clients. Now, what's in TeamViewer Remote Management? Well, we've got a number of different pieces to that. First off, we have our monitoring piece. This allows the TeamViewer software to monitor the devices for specific kinds of events, such as running low on free disk space, or staying offline for too long, or if a particular process has suddenly stopped on the device. You can be alerted to those through the monitoring. It also encompasses asset management, so you can collect data about the hardware and the software in your environment and be able to output that information. We've also recently added Windows patch management for both the Windows operating system and a wide array of third-party applications. And we've even started to introduce a software deployment catalog, so you can push out complete applications from that catalog. We also have our web monitoring product. This allows you to monitor your company's own websites for uptime, page load, and even your different transactions that may be offered. So you can make sure that your website is performing to your standards. Endpoint protection, of course, falls under that, like everything that we've discussed. And of course, we have our file backup feature. which you can choose to use to back up important files and folders from your workstations and servers in an encrypted form to the cloud for easy restore. Also, all of these remote management features are fully embedded into TeamViewer. So once you have that main TeamViewer host or client on a device, you can then also activate the various remote management features simply by selecting the devices and activating that feature. All right, so now it's going to be time for a poll. So which features are most important to you in your endpoint protection products? So you can choose from better detection of new or unknown malware, automated malware remediation, ransomware protection and recovery, suspicious activity monitoring, or isolating compromised endpoints. All right, let's go ahead and proceed on here. Let's take a look at our results. Okay, so ransomware protection came out on top there. Always big in the news and can be really difficult to recover from. So having any kind of tool in place is going to be an important piece to your cybersecurity stance. Suspicious activity monitoring, also a good one. Better detection of new or unknown malware, also great. All right, so thanks everybody for that. We'll definitely take all of that feedback. All right, thanks for the patience there. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the actual Malwarebytes endpoint protection and endpoint detection and response. So you can see here on my shared screen, I've got my classic TeamViewer client here. Now to get to it, we're going to go ahead and jump into the TeamViewer Management Console. Bring that over here. And then we're going to come down to our Remote Management section and click on Endpoint Protection. Now to see the new Malwarebytes area, I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to click the Malwarebytes logo. And this is going to go ahead and load up our dashboard for Malwarebytes. So before today's webinar, I've done a little testing with some dummy malware on some devices. And that gives us some good data to look at here. So with your overall dashboard, you have a great look into the overall state of your environment with regards to your endpoint protection. So we can see the different main statuses of our devices. Nothing requires remediation or restart. Looks like one machine does need a scan. Oh, and it looks like we detected some suspicious activity on a device as well. Okay, so we'll definitely want to take a look at that here. I can also keep scrolling down and see my top endpoints for detections, the different detections by status, and how many total detections have been cleaned. Right. Then going back up to the top, we'll also have the Devices tab, and this is going to show all the devices that I'm currently managing with endpoint protection and their status. Okay, so looking at, we've got about 6 devices here, and you can see, looks like we've got a couple with some different statuses. Okay, so one example here is this server here is saying no scan for 8 days. Well, I can tell you that's because we had a misconfigured policy. There were no regular scheduled scans happening on the device. I've gone ahead and fixed that policy, but I still want to go ahead and do an immediate scan. So what I can do from right here is while I'm viewing this device, I can simply come over here to the right edge. And I'll have my 3 dots. Click that here, and I can hit scan and report. That will go ahead and immediately schedule a scan to run on that device. If any kind of activity is found, it'll go ahead and report that to us. All right. Now, you may also see one of our other devices is showing suspicious activity was found. Okay, very interesting. So the suspicious activity when it comes to endpoint detection and response can be things like disabling user access control or changes to the registry that were not expected or were performed by an unknown application, things like that. So when this is found during any sort of real-time scan or scheduled scan, we'll report the status here, and we'll actually have a link here to show us that we can review those details. So if I click that here, now it is going to give me the option to go to the Malwarebytes Nebula console. This is going to allow us to review the details of that suspicious activity. So the endpoint detection response is an ongoing and evolving product. So as our developers continue work on it here, more and more of the features will be integrated into the management console. There are a few of the advanced features we still access to the Malwarebytes console, such as suspicious activity, but thankfully it gives us a quick instant login to that. So I just click yes, and that opens up a separate tab and automatically logs me in to the Malwarebytes console, where I can see the details of that suspicious activity. Okay, so yeah, it'll show me the device that was determined to be suspicious, the endpoint where it was found, and so forth. I then, over here in the actions, I can choose to remediate it, or I can just simply close it. So I'll go ahead and choose to remediate. Now, this particular remediation is going to require a reboot, as you can see here, so it will warn us to see if we want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that for right now. All right, so I'm going to jump back here to the TeamViewer console. Let's talk about some of the other items here. Within the dashboard, you are allowed to designate users that can access the endpoint protection details, as well as determine their role. So some people can be administrators and be able to view all settings in all device groups, or people can be a read-only, and you can only give them access to certain groups of devices within the endpoint protection. To that end, you can create groups to organize machines. So if you want them to have different sort of scan schedules or different settings for the endpoint protection, you can create those various groups. For example, we have a group dedicated to our servers. That way our servers can have a different scan schedule. Maybe our daily scan is just a basic scan and not a full scan of the device, things like that. We'll also have the ability to create policies that will let us control how the software runs on the devices. We'll have some general settings, such as showing the icon in the notification area. We'll also have OS-specific settings, such as do we scan for rootkits? Do we scan zip archives? How do we want to handle potentially unwanted modifications in programs, etc.? Details on real-time protection. This also runs on Mac as well, Mac OS. So we'll have some specifics for that. We will have Linux support coming soon as well. You can see that here. And then for the endpoint detection and response features, those advanced features, those can also be set in a separate section of the policy. Those policies can then be assigned out to the different groups. And there are also some advanced settings that are also available from that Malwarebytes console. So if I click the advanced settings button, that'll again take us to the Malwarebytes console, specifically to that area, and I can go through and look at some of the advanced options for the policies. So again, this is just as we start to bring those features into the management console over time. Eventually, everything will be available in the TeamViewer console. All right, we also have our scan schedules. So we can determine how often and what types of scans should be done on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And you can have several schedules assigned to a group. So for example, we have a daily scan schedule to do what we call a hyper scan, which is just a very quick scan. And then we also have a weekly full scan that we're using for our servers and workstations. We also have the ability to add exclusions. Now that is currently in the Malwarebytes console, but is coming to the TeamViewer console very soon. That's going to be one of the newest ones coming to that. But if necessary, you can come in here and you can exclude paths, specific files, etc. And lastly, you'll be able to view your quarantine. So any files that have been quarantined, such as this test Trojan file that I worked with earlier today, if I do need to go ahead and restore that or completely delete it, I can do that from right here. So I can choose to restore that device or just completely delete it. All right. Now going back to our devices view, we've also got a few other advanced options. If you do go with the endpoint detection and response, you'll also have the option to isolate the endpoint. Now this is a great feature. It's very useful for if you want to stop the spread of any possible infections. If you've identified a compromised device in any way, you can choose to isolate it from the rest of the network so that it cannot spread that threat to other devices on your network. You can easily choose to isolate the endpoint from right here. And once you do, then it is completely cut off. All network traffic going out of the device is blocked. The one exception is you can still access the device with TeamViewer. So even while isolated, you can still connect to it, and you can work on it through a TeamViewer connection to fix the issue, do any sort of additional cleaning or remediation that may need to be done on the device itself. And then once you're done, you can remove that isolation and the machine will be back on its feet. So allows you a lot of control to really sort of nip things in the bud as they are found, but still give you the ability to connect into that machine remotely and work on it rather than having to physically access the device. So great help there. And you'll be able, like I mentioned, to connect to the device directly with TeamViewer. So we've got a connect option here. I can go ahead and just hit that. It swaps over to my TeamViewer client and then makes the connection to that device so that I can then go ahead and control it and do any other sort of local work that might be necessary on the device to do our sort of final cleanup here. There we are. So I can then go ahead and log into the device and take care of whatever I need to do with just a standard TeamViewer remote control session. All right. Finally, we'll have our detections dashboard. So as any kind of malware, malicious website, suspicious activity may be found, we'll see all of those details here, and you can review those details. For instance, here on our test machine, I tried to access a known malicious website, and that was immediately blocked. So as an example, let me go back to my recent connections here. If I jump back on that device and try to access that site again, you'll be able to see how that website blocking works. So I'll bring up my browser, and I'll go to one of those example malicious websites here that are known to install malware or otherwise infect devices when that site is visited. Pull that up here. It's taking a little bit here. There we go. All right. So I go to activationkeys.org. Is a known malicious website? Nope. Sorry. That's been blocked by Malwarebytes as a known malicious website. So your user will get a nice warning here. They'll also get that pop-up notification from Malwarebytes so that they can either go back or they can let you know that this was a false positive for some reason. However, false positives are very rare when it comes to that. So you'll have that capability. We also have, of course, our dummy test files. So if I drop any of those on the device, those would also be detected by real-time scanning, for instance. All right, so that is going to be an excellent look here at the new endpoint protection and the endpoint detection and response features, highlighting our partnership with Malwarebytes. So at this point, why don't we go ahead and answer some of your questions with the Q&A.
Okay. I will push the first question your way. The first question is, how does this compare to offerings like Nessus and Fortinet?
Excellent. So that's a great question. So those products do quite a bit, not only of endpoint protection, but also network monitoring. So you can do real-time monitoring of devices on the network and things like that. With the endpoint protection and the EDR, we are focusing more on malware, rootkits, malicious websites, things like that, and not quite so much on pinging servers on a regular basis to make sure that they're online and things like that. So it is focused on that malware and malicious website protection. Great question. Thank you.
All right. We currently have a TeamViewer subscription and also subscribe to Malwarebytes Cloud from our workstations. Can I install and integrate them?
So really, you'd want to talk to your TeamViewer account manager or sales department about that. They can give you more information about how you might be able to put that together. You would also want to talk to Malwarebytes as well to let them know that you're interested in the integrated offering. And then at any point, once you purchase, you can go ahead and switch over to the TeamViewer integrated version. All right,
Okay.
Great question.
Does this include an antivirus?
So yes, anti-malware is sort of the preferred term these days for any kind of software intended to do harm. So that would include antivirus as well in both endpoint protection and endpoint detection and response.
Okay. Does this monitoring piece provide configuration management compliance monitoring, i.e., notify that a particular endpoint is lacking a Windows Service Pack or has unauthorized application installed?
Not currently. Not currently. This particular piece is about preventing and removing malware, ransomware, protecting against malicious websites. Configuration management, not quite in the scope of this particular product. So staying focused on that protection of the endpoint.
Okay. Will you be eliminating IT Brain antivirus?
So we will eventually be sunsetting the original endpoint protection. Customers can continue to use their existing subscriptions, and they can also talk to their account managers about moving to the new Malwarebytes endpoint protection. More information on dates and things like that will be announced in the future. For right now, though, if you have the endpoint protection, you can continue to use it without any issue. If you need more details on that, please feel free to contact your TeamViewer account manager.
Alrighty. Here's another one. What is presented to the user on their live screen while the Malwarebytes endpoint scan is running on their machine when launched from the dashboard devices panel?
So actually, the users really aren't going to see much of anything if you choose to run a scan on a device from the management console. All of that's going to be completely silent. So if anything, the user, if you've enabled them, may get a notification if malware is found during real-time scanning or a scheduled scan. But you can also choose to just completely turn those notifications off so that the user is not notified if something is found, and just keep it to your TeamViewer management console.
All right. Does this integration work with Splunk and other SIEMs?
So Malwarebytes does offer that. Whether it will be included in the TeamViewer integration, I am not sure about that. So keep your ears open on that, and we'll see what other information we can find. In the meantime, we do have the reports built into the management console, which you can always review. And you can also review reports within the Malwarebytes Nebula console as well.
Will MBAM be integrated into TeamViewer full client software? It must be Malwarebytes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. The endpoint protection and the EDR options will both work on the full client as well. So whether you have the TeamViewer host installed on an endpoint, or if you have a TeamViewer full client, you can activate these features on them and they'll work the same. Mm-hmm. Great question.
All right. Can you roll back a ransomware from the console?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And that is one of the great features of the endpoint detection and response is that ransomware rollback. So to dig into that a little deeper, as we know, ransomware is when some malware encrypts files on your devices and asks for money to decrypt them. With ransomware rollback, though, you can prepare for that by identifying files that you'd like to be able to roll back, files or folders that you would like to be able to be rolled back if they do become encrypted. Once you've identified those, then those files are automatically backed up to a different place, a hidden directory on the device, so that if they do become encrypted by ransomware, you can roll back using the copies of those files. There are copies of files that will be kept for up to 72 hours, so you can go as far back as 72 hours to roll back to an unencrypted form of that file. Great question. Thank you.
All righty. Here's another one. What's the migration path like from the original TeamViewer Endpoint Protection to the Malwarebytes integration?
Okay, absolutely. So you can actually run both products in your environment at the same time as you are migrating over to it. So you may have the original endpoint protection running on some machines. You may decide to activate the new one on some new devices. And essentially, all you really have to do is just make sure that in one of the applications, whether it's the old endpoint or the new one, that you turn off real-time access scanning in one of the products. That way, they're not both trying to do real-time scanning and they end up stepping on each other's toes. So you can certainly do that once you get it all set up. And then once you've migrated everybody to the new Malwarebytes integration, you can go and simply choose to uninstall the older endpoint protection using the commands and options in the TeamViewer Management Console.
Alrighty, and one last question, and then if there's any questions that we didn't get to, there were some questions around pricing and that sort of thing. Your account executives can help answer those questions for migration pricing and just pricing in general. And then the last question is, our clients are very concerned with ransomware. How well will this product protect against ransomware?
So very, very well. As we said at the top of the webinar, Malwarebytes is a well-respected name in the anti-malware industry, and they have made great strides in detecting and preventing ransomware. So it is a great solution for stopping that in its tracks with real-time access scanning, regular scheduled scans. And as we mentioned with the endpoint detection and response, you'll also have that rollback option. So if for some reason it does get through, for any reason, encrypt some important files, you can roll back to earlier versions of those files that are unencrypted. So it will be an excellent protection against ransomware as that new threat continues to evolve. All right, excellent question.
All right, so that will be the end of the questions today. Terry, I will let you put it out.
All right, excellent. Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining our webinar today. And if you have any more questions about the product or about pricing, please feel free to reach out to us. You can visit our website at teamviewer.com, or you can always contact your TeamViewer sales team for more information. Thanks for joining, everybody. Have a wonderful day.